Hello everyone, so thank you very much once again for clicking and watching this video. I know it has been a while, but finally the third video is out. So here I think I promised that we're gonna talk about the both written exam and the oral exams. However, I try to make in the video, it's just so long, I don't want to bore you guys to death, so I decided to just make this video for the written exam, and I already have like 20 minutes of talking and talking. But before I talk about the written exam, I also wanted to mention for this written exam, I am giving you 4 sample practice questions, and you will actually be able to purchase this whole set. So it has 51 questions, and I made it with my heart, trying to think what was on the exam, what kinds of question you can expect, and I try to make it as close as the actual exam, which could be good study material before you write your written exam. And this is all in English as your written exam is. So anyone who is out there thinking about taking this written exam soon, I think it will be a good practice. So I highly recommend you trying it out. Unfortunately, this is not going to be for free. I am just selling it for $5, which I believe shouldn't be too much. There is a link below that you can find, but you can see how this video goes and how my sample practice question is like. I will be explaining that more later, but I hope this helps. So we are going to start once again by looking at this MBCMI Candidate Handbook. If you have not watched the first 2 videos, I highly recommend you do that before you watching this video. You will see where you can find this, but short answer, you will be able to find this on the website. Here, I want to have a look at where it says preparing for the exams and written exam content outline. It says page 10 and also page 12 for the oral exam. So let's go down all the way to page 10, and that's where you will be able to find all of these written exam content outline. So just to give you a quick, brief idea what this written exam is going to be like. This is the first exam all of you will have to write before you can get certified as a certified medical interpreter. For many of you, this is going to be the only exam available for some of the languages. I believe we talked about this in the first or second videos. If you're not speaking one of those 6 languages, then this is the furthest that you can go with a CMI title, and you will get the Hub CMI title after passing this written exam. This is only offered in English, meaning you do not have to know the medical terminology in 2 different languages. Simply knowing what it is in English would be good enough. And it is a fully 100% like a computerized exam, and it has around 51 questions. I can't remember how many questions exactly there were, but it says 51, so I believe it would be 51. And then it just lists out what types of the questions that you can expect on the exam. And I think you should just give it a good read. And it even shows the percentage, like the ratio of how many questions from this topic or this topic, those kind of things. But long story short, around 40%, I think it's going to be mostly on the interpreter stuff, like interpreter ethics, cultural competence, or roles as a medical interpreter, or even like going all the way down here, those kinds of acronyms and legislation and regulation, those kind of things that you have to know. How would you study for those? I think they are pretty straightforward. So probably just solving some of the practice questions, which I have prepared for you, and I will be mentioning it soon. Probably there'll be enough because, it is pretty straightforward, but you can also go to these websites and just, have a read. I tried reading them myself. It is pretty straightforward. I'm saying this again and again, so I don't think you will really struggle. Personally, for me, those 40% ethics questions, like, I could see how it could be a sucker punch for some people because it can be a little confusing. But if you just really think carefully and the standards, the principles, then I think you'll be fine. The rest, the 60%, is going to be all medical related stuff. So when I say medical related stuff, they're going to talk a lot about medical terminologies, medical tests, each system of the body, which is a huge chunk of the exam. And you will get questions for each department of the specialties of the medical in the hospital, such as like ENT, pediatrics, oncology. So you might actually wonder before you write this exam. So this is probably the biggest question that many of you might have. How much do we have to know as a medical interpreter? And how in depth does it go? And for obvious reason, this is such a hard question for me to answer because everyone is different. If you have ever taken bio 11, 12 courses in high school so that you are roughly, quite familiar with these systems of your body, like human anatomy kind of stuff, you might be okay. Obviously, if you have done pre-med or med school, you're a nurse or you're a doctor, obviously you're not going to have any problem, in my opinion. However, I personally have not done any of those medical studying prior to this exam, prior to me preparing for this exam. So I've never taken bio 11, bio 12. I did not in high school. So it was tough for me. I had to really start from the very beginning. I still knew some of the stuff just from, common knowledge, right? But you really have to go a bit deeper than that. You definitely have to know what ENT stands for, what oncology is. If you are hearing urology and nephrology and you're not sure what that is, then you definitely need to study. So I think it is probably a good idea for the vast majority of you to at least watch crash course on YouTube. I personally found these crash course videos really helpful, and I studied with these a lot. I even made a giant posters, and I drew each system, and I labeled it. I wrote down what it is or what it does or things like that. Basically, something that you should do if you need to know really the basics of the medical or human anatomy systems. So at this stage, you do not need to worry about your language portion. So for me, I did not have to necessarily learn things in Korean. You just have to know what it is in English. But I do have some sample questions for you, and I think it will be helpful. So why don't we have a look at that? So here is the first question of the sample practice exam, practice questions that I made for the medical interpreter certification. I prepared 4 questions, but I believe I have mentioned at the very beginning of this video, I have a actual set of practice exam that I have made personally for you, and that I apologize, but not offering that for free. I'm offering for just the $5 US dollars, and you will be able to purchase that on the PayPal link that I'm attaching it to. You will find it in the Google Docs, and it comes with 51 questions following that percentage, the ratio, and the things that you can expect to be on the exam. You will have a little bit of exposure to just experience what the actual exam is going to be like. And I think it is a worthwhile investment if you are worried. But if you are confident, then I think you are probably good to go without really, spending that extra $5. But it's $5, so it is up to you. I have 4 questions of the sample questions. I did prepare some easy questions, not necessarily hard one, but let's give it a go. Number 1, what is the most basic role of an interpreter, also known as the default role of the interpreter? Option A, conduit. B, culture broker. C, clarifier. D, advocate. E, none of the above. Well, first of all, this should be really easy question. And if you have no idea what it is talking about, what the heck is a role of an interpreter? What kind of role? I thought interpreter is an interpreter. Like, if you have no idea what this is even talking about, then you probably should either take a course or look up those websites that are listed on the MBCMI website, and you will be able to find some information about this. So there are mainly 4 different roles, and the most basic role of an interpreter is the conduit, I believe. But we can check the answers later. So we can move to the next question. Here's the next question. During the session, a patient says something offensive to the doctor, but quickly asks the interpreter to not interpret what they said. As an interpreter, what should you do? So this is one of the, ethics question. It's a very specific situation is given to you, and you will have to think what is the best decision that you have to make. So on the exam, you will typically see either 2 to 3 questions on one page. Then you will mark the answer, and you go to the next page. I believe you cannot go back. I'm actually not sure. I cannot remember. I apologize. But that's what you will have. It's not like one giant page of 51 questions. You a sort of navigate through the pages. So you have 1 or 2 questions on one page, and then you click the answers, and then you go to the next question, something like that. That's how it will go. So here, let's look at the option. A, do not interpret the remark, as mistakes can happen to everyone. That is nice. B, disregard the patient's request and interpret. C, remind the patient that interpreters must interpret everything and interpret the remark. D, explain the situation to the doctor and ask if he or she would like to hear the interpretation of the remark. E, recuse yourself from the duty and leave the premise as soon as possible. What do you think the answer is? I will share the answer just in a moment. You can think about it. Question number 3. What is a linguistically higher register medical terminology for a kneecap? So here, higher register. What do we mean by higher register? It is actually a very important concept that you should know if you're working as an interpreter, I believe. When we say something has a higher register, we are really saying that is a more difficult way of saying it. So like a kneecap, this is the giant big bone, the joint on your knee, and we call it kneecap, right? But there's a higher register term, meaning there's another word meaning the same thing, but more difficult way of saying it, more technical terminology for kneecap. And here we have options of tibia, ulna, carpal, patella, or none of the above. Well, can you tell which one of these is kneecap? And let me say this again. This is supposed to be a really, really, really easy questions that if you see it on this kind of question on the exam, you should be happy because there is no way you should be getting this wrong. So I think you might have a better idea now how much you should maybe know. I mean, if you already knew, probably it wouldn't help much. But I would say this is one of the easiest questions that you can expect to see on the exam. If you are struggling with this, then you definitely need to study medical terminology. We'll check the answer in a bit. Here is the last questions that I have prepared for you. Number 4, the outermost of the 3 layers of thick membrane made of dense irregular connective tissue that surrounds the brain and spinal cord to protect the central nervous system is blank. So I feel like we're going a little bit more technical in terms of the medical terminology. And this indeed, as you can tell, they are throwing in lots of words. So if you're not familiar with these medical terms, you might feel little panicky and be like, oh my god, I don't know what they're talking about. But you just have to really know your stuff and really read this question. And this is something that is surrounding the brain. And if you're not sure what it is, you might suffer a little bit, but there are the major 3 layers of thick membrane. And some of these are those 3 layers: pia matter, dura matter, subarachnoid space, arachnoid, none of the above. Well, probably not this, or you never know. But if you know the answer, which is the outermost one, then it is time for you to answer, and we will be looking at the answers right now. Okay, so here is the answer key. Yes, the answer to the first question, as I mentioned, it is the conduit. All 4 of these roles are the roles of an interpreter. So interpreter do take a role of conduit constantly. You're the conduit, like a pipeline. You're just, delivering the messages, interpreting. There are moments where we come in as a culture broker, clarifier, or occasionally an advocate. I believe, we usually say that if you are working remotely, so if you're not really hired directly by your patients, then you don't necessarily take the role of an advocate. But, let's not go into too much details. Here, the answer is indeed a conduit. The next question, the situational, the ethics sort of questions. Here, what we should do was remind the patient that interpreter must interpret everything and interpret the remark. So this kind of thing actually might be confusing. I think some of the answers, so now you probably understand, when I said it can be straightforward, it can be a little confusing. I think, for answers like this, it's pretty straightforward that it is being a little bit too straightforward and saying that this is not the answer. Mistakes can happen to everyone, yes, but you shouldn't just be forgiving everyone and do not interpret. Indeed, when you are medically interpreting, then you have to interpret everything, and you do have to let them know that you do. And really, this is the option. Why is not B the option? Although you are interpreting, I don't think you should just ignore and disregard, what they are saying. It is your job to remain professional and inform them as needed that you have to do this for part of your job, and that's what you're going to do. So instead of just ignoring them, they are asking you to not say it here. But simply ignoring it, I don't think that's really a professional thing to do. So you will explain that and then interpret. And this could be a little confusing. I feel like some of you might have answered D, explain the situation to the doctor. This is indeed what we do for non-medical interpreting, so a community interpreting, business interpreting. So if it was not a medical setting, you might do that to the English-speaking person or whoever that might be, and if they do want to hear what they were told. But for medical interpreting, because in the States, HIPAA regulations, or in Canada, PIPEDA regulations, we do have to keep information confidential, of course, but also we are supposed to interpret all the information and not hide that from one party if it is being spoken, if it was spoken during our conversation. So we have to interpret the remark. So the answer was C, and I'm pretty sure nobody picked the E. I hope. But here is the next question, and the answer for this was patella. So for the kneecap, another higher registered term was patella. TBI is just another word for shin bone, so in your legs. Ulna is going to be your forearm bone, so your arm, and carpal is going to be a wrist bone, so in your hand. And yeah, patella, just like I said, is kneecap. And I think I was saying this earlier, this really should be one of the easiest questions that you can see. So you need to study if you found that challenging. So you should study to the point where you find this kind of question on the exam, you should be absolutely happy because you know that you will get this right. Last question, the answer was dura mater. So this is what I was talking about. The 3 layers that we were talking about earlier is the meninges, dura mater on the outside, then arachnoid, then pia mater. That's what we were talking about, right? So if you have no idea what meninges is, you might have heard the terminology meningitis, something like that. But, this kind of thing you do have to study. And if you don't, you will panic because you will see questions like this. I am 100% sure you will see these kind of questions. That was it for today's video. We have talked about the written exams and what kind of questions you can expect with those 4 sample question examples that I provided. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video and throughout the video, there is a practice set that I personally made. It has 51 questions just like the written exam that you will be writing. So I think it would be a great opportunity to prepare yourself and practice before you write the exam. It costs $5. I hope it is a worthwhile investment. You can purchase that in the link below. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. I will try my best to answer. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will come back with the final last video of this MBCMI prep sessions, the oral exam. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much. I will see you soon. Bye bye.